I just put together some really short tips on things I've learned from doing this for maybe 4 or 5 years now. And I think the two biggest tips to start off are, one, really know what you want to submit and find the appropriate category for it. And that doesn't start when you get the form that says, hey, it's a call for entries. It's really a year-long process. At least I've found that it's a lot easier if you start thinking about it early. One of the tips I suggest is putting together a folder on your desktop that just says contest entries, and tossing press releases, media plans, campaigns, brochures, media clip, anything that you thought, wow, that was really good, or team did a great job there. Just toss it in there, because when this time rolls around, I know I've forgotten half the things I've done because I do so much in volume. So that's a big help. And I can't echo more strongly what Cynthia said about when you do this a couple of times, you find that you're doing your job better, because I start thinking, okay, does this fit this contest? What am I missing? And the contest really recognizes good practices. And so if you're doing good practices, it's easier to put together the contest entry because you're already doing things the right way. So that's kind of the overview. The things that were hardest for me the first time I did this was looking at that 2-page summary that you have to put together and meeting all the categories that they have, you know, research, situation analysis, objectives, implementation, evaluation, and budget. I think the first year I did it, and no one in the office had really done this for a while, it was kind of just a big jumbled mess. It was all in there, but if I had been a judge, I would have pulled my hair out because I wouldn't have found anything. So I learned through the second and third year that if you make it easier for the judges to pull all the information, you increase your chances significantly. That at least you will convey the information. The other big thing I learned the first time out is that you need to put yourself in the judge's shoes as far as what they're looking for, and linking your entry form to your collateral or your information that you're showing to support what you said you did. And that's really critical. If you can't link them, and in the binder it was easy because you include it in your summary, and then you can say see Appendix A or see Appendix B or whatever, and then you can make the link. With the digital format, I think we'll have to be a little bit more creative in making sure it all links. But as long as you refer to information and then support and show off your best pieces as that supporting material, you tend to do well. Let's see. I guess the other thing I learned too was you spend a lot of time putting this together. At least we do in our office. We have 3 people usually put it together. Sometimes we ask Curly and Penn to give it a second look. Always reserve one person in your office who has never seen it to be your last line of defense. And then the day that you're going to ship it off or upload it or however you're going to do it, have that person look at it, because they should never have seen anything that you're doing. And then they can look at it and they will hand it back to you and say, I don't know what you're talking about, fix it. Or they'll say it makes sense, or they'll even find simple things like typos and grammar mistakes. Those are some of the basic tips I would suggest. And the other thing is talk to all the people in your office or in your group about what you're doing throughout the year and what could potentially work as something for the contest and what may not work. And it's always better to have a lot of potential ideas when this time rolls around to look at, and then you can discard them, as opposed to going back and digging through. And that's where that contest folder comes into play again too. And one thing I learned the really, really, really hard way is for one contest, I think 2 or 3 years ago, I had a really nice hit, and I can't remember if it was the New York Times or the Washington Post or something, and I had saved the link, but when I went to go get it, it wasn't there. It was a dead link. So that taught me to, worst case, the ones you really think will showcase something you do, just take a screenshot of it, and at least you have that to add to your supporting material. That's really it. I mean, for me, it really was a trial and error type of approach. And as a group, we kept getting better and better about putting together the entries. So I don't know if anybody has any questions.
And tip number 1 on here, start early, is probably the most important tip on this whole page. Don't start the day before, February 27th when it's due on the 28th at 5 o'clock. You will never get through it. It will take you a lot longer than you think it will to put these entries together.
And always anticipate things for FPRA and for any other contest you're uploading anything to. Everybody waits till the last minute to upload, so the websites tend to crash. And sometimes they will extend the deadlines, but there are cases when they will not. So early is better, that's for sure. Although that's always easier said than done. So, thank you.
Okay, I had a very unique experience last year. It was my first time entering the awards and my first time judging. So I wasn't sure what to expect going into submitting my own award. So instead of diving straight in and doing a full campaign, I decided to choose a tool. And I went with our new website that we created. Is this your first time entering the Image Awards? Okay. I found it a lot less painful to go with submitting a website that we revamped, something that wasn't a full out PR campaign, that I could just focus on one tool. That was really beneficial for me. So when choosing an award to enter, I wanted to focus on something that we had just revamped. Obviously we had a website before, we revamped it, and I thought it was really important to share with the judges what we did differently, and you can also go with something that you have never done before. So if it's something that your company has not gotten into before, this would be a great way to showcase that as well. I brought my binder if you guys want to pass this around. It has the judges' comments and everything so you can see what they're looking for. But just to start, our 2-page summary, as Bianca said, is we're 70%, so that's where you want to spend the majority of your time. Within that 2-page summary, the implementation is actually what is rated highest. So that's the highest percent that judges are looking at. For the research and situation analysis part, I, as a judge, was looking for, first, did they define their target audience? If they had more than one, did they define the other target audience? You definitely want to use the PR terminology. So for the research section, was it informal? Was it formal? Basically the same thing that we do for going for the APR. So you want to measure too, was it qualitative or quantitative? You really want to speak in their terminology so that they know that you know what you're talking about. You also want to talk about the background info and why the organization is doing this PR program in the first place. For objectives, one thing I really look at as a judge, were they time-bound and measurable? Because if they're not time-bound and measurable, once you get to the evaluation section, you can't relate your results back to the objectives to measure your success. So that was a major thing that I would look for as a judge. I found it beneficial to list the objectives by a number. So like objective 1, increase website traffic by 30% by the end of the year or whatever. So that when you get to the results, they can look at your first number 1 and easily go back and see number 1 in objectives. So again, just making everything easier for the judges will get you some points. For implementation, again, this is the meat of your entry. They want to see that you're being strategic, that you're not just going on your gut. They want to make sure that you're executing tactics and activities strategically. But one thing that I also looked for as a judge was creativeness and innovation. You're judged pretty highly on that because if it's a unique campaign, then it's something that's never been done before and it's creative and innovative, they will give you higher points. So you want to ask yourself, what about this campaign is unique? What did we do this time that we didn't do before that helped in our results? So for the implementation, you definitely want to keep in mind what you did differently than you've done before. You want to address your target audiences here too, and be clear about your tasks and objectives. You want to talk about the strategy behind what you did and why you did what you did in this section. For evaluation, again, you want to reference all your objectives in the same order And you want to show how you either met or exceeded them. So you want to in brief, concise sentences, we met objective 1 by increasing the traffic to the website by 40%. So we actually exceeded by 10%. So you really want to spell it out to the judges and make them see that.
And if you didn't meet your objectives, that's okay too, but you need to explain what you learned from it. What would you have done differently? What would you do next time if you had it all to do over again? So, the judges don't expect all your programs and entries to be absolutely perfect. Obviously, not everything is a stellar success, but they just want to see that you've learned from it and you saw what you could do differently.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And you want to make sure that you reference all of your objectives, even if you did not meet them. I actually read an entry that did not reference all their objectives, so you want to be sure, even if you didn't meet them, that they're in the evaluation. As far as supporting materials, this is where you really prove what you did and create like a visual portfolio for the judges to look at. When I was judging, I would read the 2-page summary briefly, look at all the supporting materials, and go back and read the 2-page summary. I wanted to make sure that all of their supporting materials that they claimed that they did was in the 2-page summary and vice versa. So you want to really define, that's where you can define what you did in your campaign. And it gives you the opportunity to put more examples and insight than you could in your 2-page summary, because it really is not very long. That was one of my biggest problems, was cutting down the words to get it to 2 pages and the margins and everything. It's really difficult to do. It's quite a challenge. So supporting materials, I would include like a timeline, surveys. As you'll see in here, my supporting materials, I have tabs separating each thing. Like I've got my research and then implementation and then evaluation at the very end. And like I said, this one was for our website, so I had screenshots of all of our old website and screenshots of our new website and what difference it made, and measurements on Google Analytics and everything. I also did some screenshots of Facebook and tweets and things like that, because we use social media to push people to our new website. So if you're entering like an annual report or brochure or news release, this is a great place for your supporting materials as well. So I would strongly suggest, if you have a campaign that changes attitude or behavior, that's a great one to go for. If you don't, if you just have something like this, you revamped a website or you created an annual report that was different from feedback you received before or surveys that you did, anything that you did differently or anything that you did for the first time is definitely worth considering, as long as you have all of the research behind it to back it up.